On July 11th, I hopped in a car with my professor and two other students, drove to Reagan Airport in Washington, D.C., and embarked on my journey to Brasilia, Brazil, with a short pit stop in Miami to prepare myself for the excitement and learning experience ahead of me. When I first opened my eyes and took in the Brazilian landscape, I was absolutely in awe. There was so much green and the water looked so blue. Everything was absolutely beautiful. I had never been more excited in my life. We were met at the airport the next day by Christina Dale and Gabriela Matos, and then immediately taken by our driver Diego to the restaurant Porcal to meet Ada Machado and her son Edson. Aside from the amazing selection of meat that was constantly brought to us on sticks by our waiters, the company was wonderful. While in Brasilia, I had the amazing fortune of staying in Ada Machado's house and having breakfast with her every morning. I was able to hear all of her stories firsthand and was blown away by each one, as well as Ada's kindness. When Ada was young, she came to State College with little money and her daughter Liliani to receive her PhD from Penn State in higher education. She then returned to Brasilia and started her own university, ESB, which now has 3 campuses and serves over 12,000 students. She is a large reason why I had this opportunity to go to Brazil, and I am forever grateful for her kindness, hospitality, and advice. After lunch, Gabriela took us around to all the sites in Brasilia. First, we climbed the TV tower, and I received my first 360-degree view of the beautiful city. We then went to view the National Congress Building. The open bowl on the right represents the Federal Chamber of Deputies, which is similar to our House of Representatives, and the closed dome on the left represents the Senate. The flag of Brazil stands tall behind Congress, providing a gorgeous view with a setting sun. The final stop was the Dom Bosco Church. The entire church had blue stained glass windows, and when the sun shined through, everything lit up inside the church. My first day in Brasilia was better than I had ever expected. On Wednesday, we spent the day at ESB, which stands for Higher Education Institute of Brasilia. The South Campus is home to the fine arts, and upon arriving, we were greeted by a large banner along with plenty of faculty and students. We were then brought to the main event, our culinary tour. We met the head chef and instructor, Sebastian. He toured us around the top-notch facilities in the herb garden before bringing us to the final stop. We were to make our own pão de queijo, which is a very typical cheese and bread snack in Brazil. I had so much fun learning and then making my own food. I was eating my goodies for days. After we said goodbye to Sebastian, we were met by Bruno, who took us on a tour of ESB's media facilities, including a radio studio, and ESB marketing students presented their projects to us. Talking to the students and faculty made me realize how important this partnership between ESB and Penn State truly is. The next day we visited a private school called Marista. The large purpose of our trip was to compare the Brazilian education system to the U.S. system, and to compare Brazilian schools to one another. Marista was clearly a top-notch school made for the children of diplomats, politicians, and other wealthy Brazilians. As we walked through the facilities, we were truly blown away, as many schools in America aren't even that well equipped. There were state-of-the-art chemistry and biology labs, multiple swimming pools and indoor gyms, an outdoor track, and so much more. When we talked to the students, they were extremely driven and college-oriented, but most importantly, they were very grateful for the opportunity to study at such an amazing school. Marista was single-handedly the best resource school I've ever seen, with some of the most committed students and teachers I had ever met. But not all the schools in Brasilia were like this one. After our visit to Marista, we had the incredible opportunity to meet and speak with Senator Cristóvão Buarque. Before becoming a senator, Cristóvão was the Minister of Education and really fought hard to reform the system. In talking with Senator Buarque, I realized that many of the issues plaguing Brazil's education system are the same ones we are trying to overcome in the United States. Low-income families are constantly attending public schools with little funding and less resources due to a policy of localization. Students struggle to find scholarships and loans to make higher education affordable, and many politicians believe education is not a significant issue. Senator Buarque was very fascinated by the idea of charter schools and centralization of the education system, which are also interesting trends running through American education research. Although the Brazilian education system seems much different from ours at a distance, it is actually very similar, but on a more extreme scale. The following day, we hopped on the metro and visited another of ESB's campuses in Solange, which is an extremely poor area of Brasilia. There we met with a group of ESB's education students who gave us a presentation on the similarities and differences between the Brazilian and American school systems. The most shocking comparison was that teachers in Brazil only make the equivalent of 12,000 American dollars per year, which shows how little value is placed in the profession. This is also something we are struggling with in America, but not to that extent. Later in the day was my favorite part of my entire trip. In the days following 9/11, the United States Embassy in Brasilia received an extraordinary gift of an American flag designed by first graders at a public elementary school in Solangia. We had the extreme honor of visiting this school and gifting them with many essentials that they could not afford for their school. The gratitude and love from the students and faculty really touched my heart. Those are the moments forever be engraved in my mind. Friday, we visited a public university, the University of Brasilia. In Brazil, the higher education system is backwards from the United States. Students study in private schools all their lives to attend free public universities, which are the most prestigious in the country. However, these public universities are extremely old and many, like UNB, don't even provide toilet paper in their bathrooms. That was probably one of the craziest things that I learned throughout my trip. We also got to go to a very traditional June party that night, which was similar to an American carnival run by a church but without the rides. There were games, plenty of traditional Brazilian food such as the favorite meat on a stick, and tons of traditional Brazilian dancing. It was amazing to be able to immerse myself completely in the culture. The next day was more about sightseeing and relaxation. We visited the World Cup Stadium in Brasilia, which had me in awe. It was so large and beautiful, and I can imagine thousands of screaming fans filling the seats. We even got to visit the locker rooms, and it's possible that I stood in the locker that Cristiano Ronaldo used during the World Cup in 2014. The world may never know. After that, we went to the botanical gardens in Brasilia, which were equally as breathtaking. That night came another one of the highlights of my trip. We took a boat trip on Lake Paranoa, which is a completely man-made lake designed to encompass Brasilia by President Kubitschek when he ordered the construction of the city. We took the boat trip at sunset, and the views were the most beautiful I have ever seen. The sunsets in Brazil were truly captivating and something I will miss. The next day is a little bit of a farewell. Ada's daughter Liliani invited us to her magnificent home to barbecue and swim with friends. The house was the most beautiful and extravagant home I have ever seen. It was on a lake, with lakes for Liliani's 7 dogs and her fish, a pool, an outdoor kitchen, and many closets including one just for shoes, which being a girl, I of course loved. Her chefs made us traditional Brazilian food, including meat and rice, and I had an amazing last day among all of my new Brazilian friends and family. Over the next 2 days, another group from Penn State traveling through South America joined us. After a meeting with Ada's son, Edson, at ESB's North Campus, we all walked down the road to a public secondary school. The students and faculty were so welcoming. They were all really excited to try to speak English with us. I answered back with Portuguese when I could, and the students got equally as excited. The people in Brazil truly made the trip as amazing as it was. After the visit, Ada took us all to an amazing restaurant on the lake and treated us to a delicious lunch. After my trip, I honestly wasn't sure if I could ever eat food again because I was so full all the time. My next and final day in Brasilia, the group ventured to a recycling plant in one of Brasilia's satellite cities. It was surprisingly intriguing to walk through the plant and hear the stories of some of the workers. We then went back to Solangia to learn about a program for the rehabilitation of prisoners. After 1/3 of their sentence is served, inmates have the option to enter into a program which allows them to create crafts, such as flags and furniture, to aid in their rehabilitation and re-entrance into the world. We even got to meet some of the inmates, which was a huge learning experience in giving second chances and not judging people by their past. It was the perfect ending to an amazing experience in Brasilia. The next day, we were on a plane to Rio de Janeiro and greeted by our fantastic tour guides Beto and Melanie. Rio is so much different than Brasilia for many different reasons, but mostly because it is more of a tourist area with many of the most popular attractions of Brazil. Our first day, we went to the magnificent Sugarloaf Mountain that my grandpa kept assuring me that I must see. He was right. As I traveled up the cable car to the top of Sugarloaf Mountain, I fell in love with the beautiful landscape of Rio. I could see all of the beautiful water, the change from middle-class areas to favelas, and the vast expanse of the city. All I can say is I am so glad that I am not afraid of heights. I was extremely excited that I wasn't afraid of heights again the next day when we visited Cristo Redentor. Not only is the Christ overwhelmingly large, but I was greeted by another breathtaking view from the top. I doubt I will ever experience views like that again. The next day we journeyed to Niterói to visit a bilingual school. This was especially fascinating to me because I have taken classes about bilingual schools at Penn State, and I had never been to one before. I fell in love with the school and its goals. The students even presented a play to us in English. Afterwards, we spent a relaxing day on the beautiful beach in Niterói. We had the whole beach to ourselves since it was winter in Rio, and I thankfully did not get sunburned. Our final 12 hours in Rio were filled with Brazilian culture in the form of soccer and a local market. The soccer game was extremely fun, and I could definitely feel the passion for the sport around me. I may not have spoken Portuguese very well, but the screaming of the crowd at every moment was invigorating. The final morning, we went to a local market that had everything from hot plates to jewelry and clothes. I had the wonderful experience of trying to bargain in Portuguese while buying presents for family and friends, and I got quite a few laughs from the English-speaking sellers. Before leaving for the airport, though, we journeyed to the beach one last time to see one final Brazilian sunset. The people in the sunsets are definitely what I miss most about Brazil. I joke with my mom all the time about my visa lasting 10 years and planning my next trip to Brazil, but I would absolutely go back in a heartbeat. I loved being immersed in the culture, and I hope that in the future I can return to visit my new friends and learn even more.